so used to CP giving me a thumbs up. It is 9:11, and we will go ahead and call to order the special call meeting of the Cobb County Board of Elections, again at 9:11 a.m. For all of those that are willing and able, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States under God, indivisible, with For those of you that are in attendance, the agenda for today's meeting is on our the Cobb County Board of Elections website. At this time, I'll call for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Madam Chair, I would like to amend the agenda.
Yes, go ahead.
I would like to remove the vote required from this particular topic for the policy discussion.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I also would like to note an amendment to the agenda to add an executive session in light of some information that our council provided to us last evening. We were in the middle of taking a vote.
Well, we had a motion, right? Mr.
Yeah, we had a motion, I'm
We
sorry.
didn't
We didn't have a second. I was
So-
going to ask him if he would like to amend his motion, or for that matter, you can drop your motion and then,
You could either amend or she can offer a substitute.
right.
Well, I would like to hear why you should not vote on these procedures first. But whatever way parliamentary to move forward is.
Well, we can.
I was gonna take discussion after we get a
Yeah,
second.
you need a second to have discussion.
Right,
Okay, I will agree to the amendment.
okay. And the amendment as to removing the requirement for a vote, as well as on the voter challenge policy agenda item, and adding the executive session. That's your,
Correct.
okay. So the motion has been amended such that we would approve the agenda with the vote being removed for the voter challenge policy agenda item, and to add an executive session. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, that motion has been moved and properly seconded. Discussion?
Like why we shouldn't vote today.
Well, I believe the reason we shouldn't vote today is this isn't a normal meeting. It's on a Saturday. I believe that the importance of this policy and the high interest level of this policy should be discussed and voted on in our normal, regular meeting. There is no urgency to pass this. On the 2/29, it expires next week. On 2/30, it expires in 45 days. So there's no urgency. And I just feel it's improper. This retreat was to put together these policies, never to vote on them. And
Can I offer just a suggestion? If you want to take action on them, you need to vote. Like if you want to approve them, you would need to vote. It doesn't mean, having this on there doesn't mean you have to make a final decision today. There could also be a motion to table it to another meeting. So like, that's a vote. So it doesn't have to be finalized today. I just think it's noted on here as vote required, because if you want to adopt them today and you feel ready to, there would need to be a vote, and it would need to be at a special call meeting as opposed to the retreat. So that's the notation for the vote required, is really just saying, if you want to adopt something, a vote is required, instead of it just being a discussion item. You can change it to a discussion item, which it sounds like Ms. Fisher is proposing, but you could also go back to saying vote required, and if you don't reach a final decision on them, they're still, it's not just approve or deny, you can also vote to table it. So that's an option that.
Well, I reiterate, I think it's just wrong to do it today. I think it's just out and out wrong. It's not transparent. It's a hot topic, and I think it's wrong. I am all for the discussion, getting it to the point. Not to mention the fact we had less than 48 hours to review the final copy. And I think that was probably not enough time for me to fully digest and put together a case against a lot of the things contained. And to do a vote today, I'm totally opposed. I know no one's surprised by that, but anyway, that's my basis, Steve.
Is there further discussion?
I guess I agree, we got the drafts pretty late, although most of the information in those drafts we already had seen in previous drafts. So I would not be opposed to voting on the drafts. On the other hand, as you say, since we're getting in the 90-day window in 2 days, it's not super urgent.
Yeah.
So I would be fine with the agenda as amended.
Well, I will add one other thing, if I may, Madam Chair.
Sure.
To not allow public comment on this topic, which we aren't today, I think is also another huge reason this should not be decided on today.
Understood, and I'm happy to address the topic of public comment. Obviously, we've had that conversation, Board Member Fisher, and it is not this board's practice to provide for public comment during a special calls meeting. And so I just wanted to be clear, it wasn't a matter of not adding or allowing for public comment at this meeting, given the topic. It's just not this board's practice to provide for public comment at any special call meeting. So, absolutely.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Debbie, if this was the first time we brought this discussion up, but we've been talking about these procedures for the last 2 meetings. And at the last meeting, we had lots of public comment about this. And I don't believe that anything that's in the procedures today is newly added from the last time we saw it. We did get the final revisions a couple days ago, but I don't think there was any new content there. So I would feel comfortable voting on it today, and I'm expecting to get more challenges, in the future. So it'd be really beneficial to have a policy in place. So when these challenges come in, we would have something in writing to refer to.
Well, our meeting is in 9 days, right? Our next board meeting is in 9 days.
That was going to be my question. In the event we don't vote today, would you be comfortable voting on the 12th?
I would, which I think I mentioned in my reasoning. So we have public comment. It's done in a regular meeting. I also think we should post the policies that we discussed today on our website so the public has time for their own review. And in our conversation, Madam Chair, about that isn't normally done. After we hung up,
I'm sorry, which is not normally done.
Posting.
I just want to be certain.
Posting the policies for public review.
Mhm.
It is done with the state election board on the rules that are put forward. Matter of fact, there's almost 3 weeks worth of postings on the website before they ever discuss it. More transparency, in my opinion, is a good thing. Less is a bad thing. Simple.
Understood. I was referring to this board
Mhm.
when I
know.
said that it has not been done before. But that also could be the case that this board has not really been active. At
We
least
could
our
be
predecessor.
trailblazers.
I understand our predecessors haven't really adopted policies. That's why we're doing it.
We could
As
be
well as bylaws.
trailblazers.
Understood. Is there any further discussion? No. Okay. That being the case, I'm ready to call the question. So the motion on the table is to approve the agenda as amended, that being adding an executive session and noting that vote required is not necessary or is not needed or will not be taken today. So one, let's just approve the agenda or not. So all of those in favor of approving the agenda such that an executive session is, I can bifurcate that because
Well, it was offered as one
one motion,
motion at this point, so
I don't want it to fail. It does not make sense. What I want is irrelevant. It doesn't make sense for the motion to fail, if possibly fail with regard to the executive session.
well, if it fails with regard to both items being in it, then you just take you just
Take a
ask
new
for a new motion. It's
Okay,
okay for a motion to fail.
all right. No, I understand. Just trying to be judicious with our time,
Sure.
given the fact we started a tad late. All that being said, there's a motion on the table. All of those in favor of approving the agenda as amended, that being the voter challenge policy is not subject or may not be subject to a vote today, and an executive session being added. All of those in favor of approving that amended agenda, if you'll just say aye. I'm just going to do a voice vote because I don't have the screen. Ms. Fisher?
We're doing individual?
Yeah, so I'm going to do a
Aye.
voice vote.
Aye.
So aye.
I say nay.
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 Nay. The vote to approve the agenda fails. Is there a motion to approve the agenda with respect? Yes,
I'll make a motion to
please.
approve the agenda with the addition of executive session.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded to approve the agenda with the executive session added. All of those in favor? Voice vote, just because it's easier. Ms. Fisher?
Nay.
Mr.
Aye.
Bruning?
Aye.
Okay. And I'm aye. That motion passes, so the agenda is approved to add an executive session. The executive session will take place after the voter challenge policy discussion. All right. With all that being said, we'll move on to the first substantive item on our agenda, that being the hearing on 229 challenges submitted by Mr. Eugene Williams. Good morning, Mr. Williams.
Good morning.
I believe
Are we
you
ready to go?
provided instructions. Yes, absolutely. Go right ahead.
I'm just curious, did any of the folks being challenged today show up? Do you have any of them in attendance?
That's what I was just discussing with Director Fall. She's provided us with information. There were individuals that responded, and but no, to my knowledge and to her knowledge, none of them are here. And if you all are here, make yourself known.
Okay, well, go ahead
None
and
are
get started. Okay, very good. Good morning, my name is Eugene Williams, and I'm here today to challenge the qualifications of 2,472 invalid voter registrations. And I'm making these challenges because every one of these folks have actually moved out of Cobb County. They've actually moved out of the state of Georgia, and they further registered to vote at the state that they've moved on to. And in fact, many of them have actually begun by participating in the voting process. And just to be clear, any one of those actions will void your residency here in Georgia and make it where you're not eligible to participate in our elections. I want to talk about Senate Bill 189, which just became law here on July 1st of this year. And they made some good clarification on rules for determining residency. One in particular reads in part that if a person registers to vote in another state, then that person shall be deemed to have changed his or her residency. So bottom line, again, if you're not a resident of this state, you can't participate in our elections and you don't deserve to be listed on our Cobb County voter rolls. You're an invalid voter registration. Now I want to talk about Georgia Code 212-228. And that's the code that guides this board regarding their duties and their responsibilities to maintain our Cobb County voter rolls. And the code's appropriately titled Examination of Electors' Qualifications. And the very first section of the code clearly states the Board of Registers of each county shall have the right and shall be charged with the duty of examining the qualifications of each elector of the county whose name is on the county voter rolls. So, you know, it couldn't be more clear. You not only have the right to look into these records, but you are mandated in the law to be doing that. It's not something you can choose to do or not. It's your duty to be doing that. And, you know, that's why I was so surprised, because I basically submitted this pretty much the same exact list to you all 5 months ago back in April, because I understand what the code says. You guys are supposed to be examining the qualification of these folks. And I was just shocked at the response I got, because you basically made it clear you're not going to lift a finger to even consider looking into these records unless I went forward and filed a formal challenge. So I went forward and I filed a formal challenge, and then just a few days later, I'm watching your meeting at the end of June, and you're complaining about the cost to do these challenges. And you know, it's really unbelievable to watch how these things go on here. But you know, the fact of the matter, no one should have to file a challenge in the state of Georgia if you will just do what you're mandated to do and look into these records. This is really a very easy process for you all to determine if this data submitted to you, it's given to you on a silver platter. There's no hard work involved. The hard work is putting the list together. It's provided to you. All you have to do is go to your counterparts in the other states and ask them, hey, are these folks registered to vote in your state? It's just simple. You're an official election government entity, and these people will talk to you if you ask the questions. In fact, on my challenges here, I did an open records request with the city of Chicago and the state of Arizona. And I mean, it didn't cost anything, didn't take hardly any time. You all don't even have to do an open records request. You could just ask. You could just ask. And, you know, they all came back, yeah, it kind of validated the data that I submitted. They said, oh, yes, sir, all of these are you know, they're listed on our voter rolls. They're registered to vote in these 2 other states. So, you know, again, you don't have to do challenges if you guys would just do your duty that they're telling you need to do in the Georgia code. So I'm going to go continue on this process of what I've gone through on these challenges. The next issue I encountered is after filing my challenge, I was informed by this board that they're going to only consider 106 out of the 2,472 challenges that I submitted. And I told you all directly, that's unlawful. You're breaking the law. I don't know how you come up with that kind of decision to do that. Let me read the code for the 229 challenge. It's very crystal clear. Any elector of a county, which is myself, may challenge the qualifications of any elector of the county whose name appears on the list of electors. You know, anybody on the voter rolls, all these folks are on the voter rolls, I'm allowed to challenge them. And there shall not be a limit on the number of persons whose qualifications such elector may challenge. So, you know, I don't know what you didn't understand in that code. It's the law. You all don't make up the law. You follow the law. I mean, honest to God, we've all just watched this fiasco we've had with our county commissioners, some of them saying, hey, we don't like the map that the Georgia legislature drew up, so we're going to reach up there and just make up our own map, and the heck with you. It's the lawful map that was made by the legislature, signed into law by the governor, and we're just going to go ahead and ignore it. You know, I don't know what's going on with some of the Cobb County government entities these days, and I'm seeing the same pattern right here with behavior like that. I have the right to challenge all these folks, and there's nothing in that code that gives you the right to limit that number, period. So I'm going to move on. Let me keep going on with this challenges. I'd like to make it clear today, I am not trying to characterize anybody on this list as a bad person. These folks have just done what Americans do, and they move all the time. I mean, nothing wrong with that. I remember being one of our meetings probably 2 years ago, and we had challenged the lady from New Jersey, and she called in and said, I can't believe, I haven't lived in Cobb County in 7 years. But she goes, I thought for sure when they signed me up in New Jersey that they canceled my registration in the other state. Well, that doesn't happen. They don't, I can't tell you why they're not saying, hey, welcome to Ohio, but let's, the first thing you want to do is sign you up to vote. Absolutely the first thing. Why aren't they turning around and saying, well, you're coming from Georgia, let's just take a minute and cancel that registration from Georgia. It never happens. And that needs to change. And I'll tell you one other kind of interesting fact. You are not allowed to have a driver's license in 2 states at the same time. That's a priority with them. They will not allow you to do that. Why are they allowing people to be registered to vote in multiple states? It's wrong, and it doesn't, it shouldn't be occurring. So let me get into the data that's provided on this spreadsheet that I provided to you. First off, please be aware, all of the data in that report is government source data. Nothing has been changed on it. You have the voter rolls from the state of Georgia, the voter rolls from the 9 other states that these folks have moved to. You have the database from the United States Postal Service on their addressing software, their program for that. And then they also used another database from the Postal Service called the NCOA link. And that's a database for permanent moves only. So if somebody filled out a change of address and said they're moving for a temporary, they don't come up in this list I sent you because it won't show up in that NCOA link database. This list that I submitted was put together by Eagle AI Network. They created a software program specifically designed to capture these moves. And they did that because nobody's picking up on these moves. People are moving constantly every day. There's just no system in place where they're capturing these moves. The Secretary of State's not doing it. Eric's not doing it. In fact, 5 of these 9 states on this report are Eric states. And, they're just not doing the job. And I know you all have no system in place either to capture these moves. So I'd really like it if I could work with you to help you clean these rolls up, because this problem's occurring every day. People are moving out. I think everybody knows that. That's just a fact of life. Eagle AI, they have great technology, and they've got really massive computing power to run this search. Please be aware, they probably have over 100 million records that they're comparing against each other to come up with this report. The voter rolls in Texas, for instance, that's got almost 20 million records. Florida's north of 18 million, I believe. Georgia has over 8 million. So you get all of that together, and it's just, I can't run this thing on my home computer. It takes quite a resource to do that. So let me talk briefly on how you go about putting in a change of address with the post office. You can do that one of 2 ways. You can go in person, or you can do it online. Now, if you do it online, you go to their website and you request a change of address form. And they ask you to provide your email or your phone number, and they'll email or text you the form. You activate that form, you tell them, you provide your personal information, you provide where you're living at, where you're moving to, got all of that. But before you can submit that form, you have to pay a $1.10 change of address fee with them. And you have to pay it with either a credit card or a debit card that's in the name of the person submitting the change of address. And the billing address has to be registered at either the address you're moving from or the address that you're moving on to. You can't satisfy that, then you got to grab your government issued ID and march into the post office and do it in person. But regardless, whichever way you do it, you have to pick up your pen and sign that form, acknowledging this is true and correct, this information you provided. And if you're lying to them, you've committed a felony offense, punishable up to 5 years in prison and monetary damages as well. So every one of these people on that list went through that process. They all acknowledge it's true and correct. And I just don't think any of them are playing games on that. So, and also something to consider, you have written authorization from this individual. Yeah, I'm moving from here. I don't live here anymore. You've also got it when they go to these other states and get their name on those voter rolls. Well, you don't just go up to Ohio and say, hey, I want to join your voter list. You acknowledge in writing, yeah, I'm living there. So, you've got 2 written confirmation signatures by each of these individuals that they've made that move. So let me try to describe how the actual search is done. Eagle Eye, I think they realized early on you can't search huge databases by names because they're all over the board. Sometimes they leave the middle name out. Sometimes they put an initial in there. It's just very hard to do. But they realized, the United States Postal Service has a great system in place. They have actually converted every single address in the United States into a 12-digit number, and then they further converted that to a barcode. So they basically initially do a barcode match on these. They take the Georgia Secretary of State, all the states, and they get the barcode for each address. Then they go to the NCOA link and they do the same thing. They compare that NCOA link to the Georgia voter rolls, and they get the matches for everybody that's moved out of the state of Georgia. And then they start matching addresses. They'll go, okay, this person here, he said he's moving to Ohio. They'll go find that specific exact address in the voter rolls in Ohio, and they'll say, who's registered to vote at that address? And when they match, they get a line on that database. Now, I'll give you another example. Say you have a Mary K. Smith, and they also capture the year of birth, just to further verify they've got the correct individual. So Mary K. Smith, she's born in 1967. She did live at 123 Little Street in Marietta. She put in a change of address that she's moving to 345 Big Street in Phoenix, Arizona. So they go to the Arizona voter rolls, they find the barcode for that address match, and they see on the Secretary of State of Arizona who's registered to vote at that address. And lo and behold, there's a Mary K. Smith, also born in 1967. And they consider that an outstanding match, and I agree. And Mary gets another line on that spreadsheet. Let me talk just briefly on Senate Bill 189 again, because they provided some really great clarification on what they consider constitutes probable cause and what the law in the state would consider good quality evidence to support your challenge. Now, they wrote this specifically for the 230 challenges. The 229, which I'm doing today, they have no standards. So I felt it was great if we could meet those 230 standards because they're pretty good. Here's what it notes for probable cause. Probable cause shall include, but not be limited to, an elector voting or registering to vote in a different jurisdiction. Let's put a check mark on every one of these folks on that list. And they want that confirmed or listed by or in a government office, a government database. Well, there we go. This is just the voter rolls in their database for all these other states. So let's get some more checks on that. And they say, or publicly available sources derived solely from such governmental sources. So, I mean, that's good. And they do talk briefly about the change of address. They don't want people using that solely by itself, but they said unless additional evidence would indicate that the elector has lost his or her residency, which we've got supporting documentation on that in the voter rolls. So anyway, this is some great data. It's not just a spreadsheet. It really is representative of some great technology. Again, all you all have to do to verify it is just send it to your counterparts in the different states, and I think you're going to find every one of these are listed on those states. So anyway, that's all I've got. I'll be glad to answer any questions if you all have questions.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Williams? Yes, go ahead, Mr. Brody.
Gene, I had a question. I tried to match some voters with the supplemental information that you sent.
Yeah.
And I'm having trouble finding the
Did you hit the link on it? Because I added some link on, some of the active status, which are the ones you all said you were going to be considering
Well,
today.
I was looking at the bottom of the spreadsheet where it says, for instance, it says 593 in a tab on the bottom.
Yeah, that should, if you hit that link, it should open up a new page in the Excel spreadsheet.
Well, let me say, I think you're referring to the line number in the spreadsheet. Is that correct?
Possibly, that may be the line. I did that a while back to but it should, when you click that link, it should pop open the screenshot for that individual.
Well, I just did that.
Uh-huh.
And for 593, and it opens a screenshot of Tareed S. Williams.
Okay, is that on that line that you clicked it? Is that the name of the person on that line?
That's the name of the person in the image. that's
Okay,
shown.
but how about on the line of data? Is that the person's name?
The line of data.
That's got this thing has
The answer
everybody's
to that
name.
question is no. I'm
Okay.
just gonna help him out.
Okay.
On 593, line 593 of that same spreadsheet, the person that's listed there is a Chris Diane Cernut, Cernut, so I believe that may be some, and I don't want to speak for Mr.
Yeah, well, anyway, I think if you'll find that, Mr. Bruning, you'll see that person listed in the thing. I'm not, maybe it got corrupted a little bit. I'm not sure. Mine worked pretty good. Are yours working, Nancy, or you, Ms. Fisher?
I don't have that
Okay.
here.
Is it working?
Yeah, so it's, you've got it.
I'm sorry,
referenced.
sir, we don't know who you are.
Well, he's here to help me.
I understand, but if everybody else has identified
Okay.
themselves,
Okay.
people, that's why I'm asking who he is. What's your name, sir?
Andrew Tornator.
Okay. I know you are the challenger. We don't have public comment at this meeting. I don't know if you want to confer with him
Well,
and provide.
Well, he's
the
just
information.
answering the question. He was here to work the data in case, anyway, what were you saying, Andrew?
You just got to reference the screenshot of 593. That's Rosa.
Okay.
I think that's just
So
the
they
way
got-
you know.
So on the spreadsheet that you sent to us, sir, if you scroll down to row 593, I, like Mr. Bruning, presume that if you click on the tab, the worksheet
No,
entitled 593.
I know what that is. That's the
Okay.
screenshot on my computer is numbered 593. So it doesn't have anything to do with the line of data. But it should be associated with the person on that line. But anyway, please consider, this is just supplement. I just did this supplementally. This stuff you already have is just straight off of the voter rolls. I mean, it's not, but if you'll click that, whatever picture comes up, you'll find that individual in that spreadsheet also being challenged. I'm sorry, it may not be on the right line. Apologies, something must have perhaps got corrupted. I don't know. It worked fine for me.
Does anyone, I have questions, but go ahead.
This is more of just a comment. So, last night and this morning, we got information from Ms. Hall's office, just with information about the 106 active voters, and I just wanted to say it out loud.
I was gonna give her the opportunity, or her office,
Okay,
as
sorry.
we generally do. But does anyone have specific questions for Mr.? I do have a couple comments based on what you've shared with us, and I have some questions. But
Okay.
also with regard to what you said. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Mr. Williams?
I do.
Yes, go right ahead.
Hi, Mr. Williams.
Hey.
I'd like to understand if you have any personal knowledge of any of these specific voters.
Do I know them personally? Not that I'm aware of. Now, when you get huge databases, you can't necessarily know if individually you know somebody or come across them. But as far as I know, no, I have no
You
personal
didn't
knowledge.
scrutinize lists to see. This is just a list to you. These are not.
No, I've gone through and just looked and checked and stuff, but no, I can't say for certain. I don't know somebody on there. I don't think I do.
And in your data query, did you account for the possibility of sort of false positives and names that could be somebody's son or, a relative?
Yeah, absolutely, because they have the year of birth for the people, so it would exclude if somebody, is the father or the son or whatever.
But a year of birth does not give us a month and a date if somebody else has the same name, correct?
Well, not all. I mean, I don't always get the complete.
You don't get the complete birthday at all because that's personal.
Well, no, they do. If you look on that list, there's quite a number of states publish the entire day, month, and year. Georgia publishes the year itself. So we're matching at least by the year.
And then if you look at entry 1284 and 1285, both of those, the names that you provided actually don't match. We have a Victor Clark and a Victor Nowak, so you might be able, you have matched some data, but not all data, correct?
No, I think it's all matched. And again, I
I
didn't
mean, I'm looking at.
I didn't
right
put
here
this
that don't
search
have-
together. That was done by
Okay, so you
the
did not
data
prepare that
scientist at Eagle AI Network. They merged all of this data and did the cross-referencing.
yet. So you
But
did not
just that,
prepare.
you know, if you just keep in mind, like I did on these open records, I just copied them and said, yeah, they're here, we got them. They sent
Georgia
you.
does have a list maintenance process, and we do follow those.
Well,
as
great, but it's
prescribed.
not working great. You're not picking up these moves. These moves are happening all the time. I don't know what list maintenance that, you know, it's, anyway, I mean, are you talking about what the Secretary of State does over 10 years before they finally remove somebody? Is that the list
I
maintenance
mean,
you're
we
talking
have a
about?
full list maintenance process that we do.
But
follow
you gotta wait
prescribed.
2 federal elections and all that. Is that what
And
you're
that's as
referencing?
prescribed by the NBRA, sir.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm just saying, it's not, there's no need to do this. If you can sit there and contact these other states, they can tell you right now they're registered. At that point, they need to go. And you don't have to send them a mail or you don't have to ask them. They've already voided their residency. So, you know, I'm glad that the Secretary of State's got something, but it's obvious. I mean, they're going to pick it up maybe 7, 8, 9, 10 years after you moved out of Cobb County. That's not list maintenance. That's record keeping. They're just tracking this election. I mean, really, it's ridiculous. It's not an effective thing. We're in 2024. We're not back in the horse and buggy era anymore. So
Well,
it's,
I'm
you
just
know,
gonna tell you that of the data that I've looked at here, at
Uh-huh.
least 2 of them you don't have name matches. So that's, to me,
okay. Well,
alone problematic in terms of disenfranchising voters that you might not know.
is this
personally.
of the 106 you're considering?
Yes.
Uh-huh, okay. Well, you know, people change their names and stuff. I mean, you have,
But you don't know that personally, that they're the same person.
no, but you can contact the state and ask them, are these people listed on your voter rolls?
Per section 229, that burden of proof is on you.
Well, I mean, I provided it, you know, with government issued data. So it's on you to get off your chair sometimes and look into these records.
No,
Oh, I
It's
am
not all on me.
I am on my.
Okay, well, I'm not being smart, but I'm just
You're
saying,
not being smart. That's
I'm not being smart. No, I'm not. I'm just saying, you guys got the duty to do some action on your end.
And
It's
yeah,
not just,
You said that the content in your government issued data,
it's all straight from the voter rolls.
okay,
Mhm.
who is certifying that?
The states that send it out, these are the state records.
No, but how do we, you know, when people are doing spreadsheets,
Uh-huh.
things get confused.
Well, this is the source, the data source. Let me repeat that again for everybody. All of the data comes directly from government sourced material. So it's really unimpeachable data. Now, I mean, I can't physically fly all these people in from out of state and have them stand in front of you. So you got to go by what the state provides as their records.
But how do we know that is state?
Well, if you'd like to find out, send in a little list to your counterpart in the other state and just ask them. It doesn't cost you anything to do that. I mean, I don't, you know, it gets almost, I'm not being smart, but it gets almost ridiculous. Like, it's right direct from the government, that stuff. I mean, the data on that sheet.
Mr. Williams, if I
Uh-huh.
can just interject, Mr. Brenning,
Uh-huh.
you will recall, you made reference to some of these procedures that we've had in previous years. And if you yourself referenced a woman that called in from
Yeah,
New
well, when
Jersey.
she
Yes,
called
I'm
in
saying
on,
generally, so we
Yeah.
agreed that we've gone through this process with regard to other challenges in prior years. And I do recall, and perhaps you will as well, as will folks here,
Uh-huh.
that to Mr. Bruning's point, when information was submitted to us, we, looked at screenshots, if you will,
Uh-huh.
from a website from the Secretary of State of North Carolina. So I believe, and again, not purporting to speak for Mr. Bruning, but I believe that that's what he's inquiring about. At present, what we have is a lot of information in a spreadsheet with lots of numbers.
Yeah.
When you and I spoke, I inquired about the headings. Because it's not a database that you created, some of the bases for these headings, you weren't even in a position to share with me. So
I don't recall that.
You don't recall that?
No,
When
I
I
don't
asked you
recall
about the headings that were
I
here?
remember you saying on one of your meeting, like, what are Duke regs? Registration?
Exactly.
And I'm going, my God, you guys are running a big, major league county and you don't know how to read a spreadsheet. It's duplicate registration. This means they're registered. I'm not being smart, but
But actually,
they're
I think you
registered in
are,
two
sir.
states.
We were
That's what a
asking you
Duke reg is.
about the information as provided to us. It's not a matter of not knowing how to read a spreadsheet.
Okay.
If I provide data to you
Mhm.
and you inquire to me, okay, well, what does this column of data mean? I would presume you would want me to be able to answer that question
Yeah,
for you.
and I'm sorry, I thought you would understand a duplicate registration. They're registered twice. But I apologize. I'll clean it up next time. So it's easy peasy on everybody.
But back to the point that Mr. Bruning was making,
Mhm.
this information is just, as you indicated, it's pulled from various
Well, it's just like
sources.
Senate Bill 189 says, this is acceptable evidence. This is derived solely from such government sources as a database, government office, website, or publicly available sources derived solely from such government sources. That's exactly where all of this data came from, directly from the government.
And to
It's-
that point, I actually wrote a comment. You said publicly available sources derived from
Or publicly. It didn't say that's, you have to meet each of these. It's any of them. It's got a database from the states. These 9 other states say, yeah, this is our folks on our voter rolls. That's what the law is now. That's good evidence. Particularly, they're saying for 230, but it should be acceptable for 229 as well.
I would tend to think that the legislature would be the folks that say if that standard was applicable to 230, to your point earlier, we can't make the law, so we can't suggest
Well,
that.
229s, they don't have any standards. That's what I'm saying. So I'm meeting a higher standard and giving you the guidelines and standards off the 230. So, I mean, I think they're great standards. They just, I think they're outstanding.
My only point in saying that, sir, is that if the legislature intended for those standards to be applicable to 230 or to 229,
I don't
I'm
think
assuming that they would have done that.
I don't think
Ms.
they make-
Fisher, you
Yeah,
had your
excuse me.
hand up.
I do. Are you required to know any of these people personally?
No, not at all.
Exactly. When Dr. Rick,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, who's Dr. Rick?
Eagle AI, he's the software
Yeah, he's-
developer for Eagle AI. By the way, he wrote the program for the insurance industry that catches, and it's used nationwide.
fraud
So
they
he's
capture.
not a novice. It catches Medicaid and Medicare fraud. So he is, he kind of, I think, knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
The voter rolls that he pulls in,
Mhm.
do you know if he subscribes to a monthly update for each state that he puts into his database with, like we can here? We can sign up for an annual voter roll. We
Mhm.
get one once a month if you pay the exorbitant amount for data we should own.
Yeah. Ms. Fisher, I don't know for certain, but I assume he does that. That spreadsheet has a file date, and that's the date of the
Last update.
last
from
update. It's got them
the
for all the different
Secretaries of
states
State.
and for the state of Georgia.
Okay.
So,
First of all, I apologize for the adversarial position that this board seems to be taking with you, because I personally thank you for going to the tremendous amount of time it takes to review these files, the thoughtfulness you put into it. And I don't believe that you're actually out to get anybody off the voter rolls who shouldn't be.
Right, no, I'm,
And so I just want to make that comment, because some of the questions asked are just very adversarial and unnecessary. Because I know where your heart is. I appreciate you doing all of this work, and we should be more thoughtful about it. Thank you.
thank you.
I have another question.
Sure.
Is Eagle AI a government entity?
No, I don't believe so.
And are you able to authenticate that the Eagle AI data came from a government agency? You yourself, are you able to authenticate that Eagle AI's data that you provided us comes from?
I could probably get some kind of documentation from them if that's what it's
So
gonna
yes,
take.
today, are you for us to?
Well, you know, ma'am, I've had this to you all since April. My God, if you got these kind of questions, I'd be more than happy to give you the documentation. But here you are waiting until 5 months later to start asking any questions you have on this data. It's
And I
ridiculous.
can answer that question.
Uh-huh.
It does come from each individual state's Secretary of State offices where available. So yes, it is a government document.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, a government document would be from an actual certified government agency.
I believe the
Yes,
Secretary
they're
of State
yeah.
is a government.
But Eagle AI is not a government agency.
I think that's the point, if
I
I
know,
can.
you know.
Again, if I can, I believe that was the point that Mr. Bruning was attempting to make. At this point, it's a matter of aggregating data. You yourself made reference to, as we were trying to figure out what was going on with Row 593 and what have you. Data can.
Well, that's just data I had. That's not from the
Sir,
Eagle AI.
So I understand, but it's just the concept, the idea that data can be corrupted.
Well,
And I believe I did not interrupt you.
Okay,
so
you're right.
just let me
I
finish.
apologize.
I believe what the question here is, and the concern is that there is no way to authenticate that, yes, the statements are that Dr. Rick received information from a governmental entity, but when incorporating or aggregating that data into this database, is there a way to certify that that is indeed the true and accurate and correct data as pulled in from the Secretary of State? I believe that is the point.
You know what? Can I say, I found your hair splitting, really. It's
I'm
like-
not here
honestly,
splitting, I'm just attempting to
it's like this is
get us
provided.
to a level playing field, sir.
Well, I mean, honestly,
That's what
it's,
I'm attempting to do.
if you could just contact your counterpart at the other states and verify that, I mean, it's simple. It doesn't cost any money to do that. So, you know, I mean, that puts an answer, an end to all the questions on it, really.
It does. I will indicate, sir, you've made reference of multiple times to the fact that you provided this information to us in April. And I absolutely can acknowledge and agree. And obviously your email is time and date stamped. But you'll also, and I think just from the point of being transparent and making certain that everyone here is fully informed, that was provided to us on the eve, if you will, of the primary election. And I believe it wasn't a matter of us just telling you that, hey, we'll get to that when we get to it. The office was obviously preparing for a primary election, and we indicated to you that we would get back to you after that primary election. After the primary election, there was also a runoff. Even this data itself says that, and thank you for the explanation with regard to the file date GA. That's when you pulled information from, if I'm to understand this, file date GA, column Q, is when you pull data from the
That's the data from the Secretary of State's.
and that date is June 3rd, 2024. So let's not I don't want it to appear to be a misrepresentation that we just sat on this data. This data, as I'm looking at it right now.
No. I changed that data when I resubmitted it because they had a few records that were removed from the original one back in April. So no, all the other data of the states are all the same. I just updated the database on the Georgia Secretary of State's voter roll.
Understood.
Just so we had a current one and we're not talking about people that they might have already removed.
Understood.
That's it.
Okay. Then with regard to,
Can I make one comment though?
yeah, I was going to move away from data and just address your concern about the board's policy, but go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask. I mean, I know y'all were in the middle of an election, but Ms. Falk, what was the participation rate in that primary? Wasn't it like 18% or 20%?
I don't know that he
Can I
can.
time out real quick?
Yes.
This is a voter challenge hearing, and really, you've made your presentation and the board is asking questions, and we've moved into a phase where really you need to be answering the board's questions. And if they want to give you some follow-up time, that's okay. But one, you don't question staff, you're addressing the board. And secondly, the chairwoman runs the meeting. And when she asks you a question, you wait until you get a question and then you answer. That's how meetings have to run. Otherwise, we end up talking over each other and we don't get a clear record. So I'm going to ask you to defer to the board, wait for a question, stop interrupting. They've let you speak, let her finish a question, then you answer the question you're asked. We're in the portion where you've made your presentation. The chairwoman has said, do we have questions? And you keep interrupting. I've been a little patient to just try to keep it amicable.
I agree, and
You
I
keep
appreciate
yes, sir.
it.
Now you're interrupting me. Just wait. Okay? So you keep jumping in, and when people, you want to get in and start arguing and being adversarial, which you're complaining about, but you don't let people finish their questions or their points. And I don't want to pause from either side. This is a serious business. What you're bringing is serious. What this board members have is serious, and we need to do this in an orderly fashion. So just procedurally, let the board ask you a question, answer the question you've been asked, and if they want to let you have some follow-up, you can ask the board questions. But really, this is for you to present your case. You have a burden of proof that you have to meet that's not probable cause. It's a higher burden under 229.
So our government doesn't allow us the back and forth to talk. We're doing a challenge here. I disagree with that.
Well, you're wrong.
I disagree with it, Mr. White, and I want to ask you,
Sir,
are you, okay,
Sir,
I
I'm a board
apologize.
attorney, and I'm helping them run a meeting,
Okay.
and you keep interrupting. This is
Well,
how meetings run.
I feel
This is a
government
hearing.
goes back and forth between the citizens.
ma'am,
No, ma'am.
no,
Okay,
ma'am, actually not.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah.
well, actually,
You all work for him.
oh,
Remember
so we
that.
don't have our
He's
general
the
sheriffs here, and unfortunately, that was perhaps an error on my side. The whole fact of the matter is, we do not allow for public comment. This is a communication. It's no different than, it's a hearing. And it's no different than if we were in a court of law, you wouldn't be able to just make an outburst like that. So while I can't stop the clapping and all of the rest, what I can ask is for you not to address this board, or for that matter, Mr. White, during the course of this proceeding. That's what I'm asking, and I would ask that you comply with that. Mr. Williams, a couple of other questions.
Okay.
Ms. Mosbacher made reference to the NVRA, the National Voting Rights Act, and how it permits a
It's the
voter
National Registration Act. It's not a voting right.
voting
It's
registration.
registration.
Got it.
Okay.
How it permits a voter to remain on the voter roll for 2 cycles. And
Yeah.
those are the voters that are inactive. Am I correct?
Yes, we also have Georgia Code 212235B, which says, an elector placed on the inactive list shall remain on such list until the day after the second November general election held after the elector is placed on the inactive list.
Right. So
Can I?
I would like to finish
Okay,
my
I got in.
question.
Okay. Go ahead.
So you made reference to a policy that this board adopted, in as much that we would not remove or take up a challenge to individuals that are noted in Jarvis, which is the voter roll here in the state of Georgia, that are noted as inactive. We're doing that in compliance with the law, the federal law as well as Georgia law. So I guess my question for you is it your suggestion that, notwithstanding the fact that we're complying with Georgia law in making and adopting that policy, are you suggesting that we should not comply with that law?
No, let me read you from the NRVA. Under what circumstances does the NVRA allow states to remove a person from the voting rolls based on a change of residence? A state may remove the name of a person from the voter registration list due to a change of residence upon the person's written confirmation of a change of residence to a place outside the jurisdiction. That's in the NRVA. You can remove people. Anyway, and I'll say that regarding the 21-2229, there is nothing in that code that allows you all to restrict the number of challenges that I made. I don't know what kind of legal advice you're getting on that. It's not in there. You do not have that right, and you're suppressing my right to do that. I mean, you're interfering in the election process, frankly.
It's not a restriction. we're just, you can file what you want. There's nothing that prevents you from filing it. We're just saying, based upon the reading of the law, we are not going to take up that challenge. And that's where, or we can say that we're going to dismiss that challenge if that language is better, but there's nothing that in our policy that says that you cannot file it. You can file what you like.
It says that every one I file will be heard. The challenges will be heard in that 21.2229. It's real clear. You have to hear the challenges that I made. You can't restrict the number that you're going to hear or consider.
Okay.
You know, I mean,
That's fair.
I thought y'all walked all over my rights as a citizen in Cobb County. I feel like you're interfering with the election process when you do that. So anyway, that's.
I would like
Does
to make
any-
Yeah,
I was gonna say, I wanted to get, we've done some work. I know that Director Fall and a member of her team, and we have information about the 106. I just wanted to understand
Mhm.
And ask questions about your presentation. Before we move on to the 106, go ahead, Mrs. Fisher.
Well, I would like to make a clarification on the portion of the MVRA that everyone hides behind.
Mhm.
In that section of the MVRA, it uses the word eligible 16 times. It uses the word ineligible under the phrase you just listed, and that is if a president, you know what's on my mind. If a resident moves
Mhm.
and signs and says this is a permanent move, then that goes away from the MVRA rule that we're discussing here. It does not say ineligible voters must be left on the voter roll. It said eligible 16 different times. And we keep ignoring it. I sent that language to all of you a couple weeks ago when we started discussing the policy. 21-2-217 is all about how you remove a voter, how we're required to remove a voter that has registered or voted in another state. They lose their eligibility. We do have access to a report that I sent everyone that can verify in another way, in a quick, easy route, and that's through driver's services in other states. So I just wanted to make clear for the people watching and the people here what NBR actually says versus what we do and how we interpret it.
If there's nothing further, I think we can move on to the work that the elections office has done. I don't know as to whether it will be you, Dr. Fowler,
Which was Dr. Director.
I'm just promoting. I'm changing the names of laws. I'm promoting people. Go right ahead, Director Fowler.
Sure. So looking at the 106, that list that we had, we did have 6 responses. So 3 individuals returned their removal requests that were mailed to them and asked to be removed. 1 returned the cross-state mailing confirmation. Those came from the Secretary of State. So all of the list maintenance mailings went out over the past 2 months. So they returned 1 of those. 1 individual filled out an MVP address change within Cobb. So they had moved within Cobb but not out of state. 1 verified their Cobb information with the DDS office. They had not moved, and they verified that with DDS. So those were 6 that we had responses from. For the remaining 100, 88 of those will become inactive on Monday due to the clock running out on those confirmation notices that were mailed.
And if I can just ask, because there were a couple of questions about that confirmation notice, for everyone's purposes, those that are here as well as those that might be viewing, can you provide a little bit more context for that confirmation notice?
Sure. So we send some confirmation notices, and the Secretary of State sends some. So the Secretary of State sends the cross-state notices. I received one because I was still registered to vote in my previous state of Virginia, and so I canceled my voter registration. And so that comes from the Secretary of State's office. And then we send out the NCOA, the ones that have moved within Cobb County, and then the ones that have moved out of Cobb County. So we mail those out ourselves. So those are the 3 different categories of confirmation mailings. That was the final batch we had.
but we started almost 2 months ago.
So when you make reference to the 88 that will be inactive on Monday due to the confirmation notice, that's again, the confirmation notices are those that we sent out, correct?
Let's go.
A combination of what the Secretary of State sent out. Okay, right.
And then those 12 that are remaining, they would remain active due to no response to the hearing letter, and they're not on that confirmation clock notice. So there are 12 individuals that are included in that. Of those 12, I did note that one of them, which is line 56 on the materials I provided for the board, it's a different last name, as well as only one of those names has a middle name. And then line 54, those birth years do not match, which was something I wanted to highlight. There were 10 total records I found where the birth year didn't match. And so
I'm sorry, you said the birth year did not
match based on the data that I have in front of me. So those two in particular, lines 54 and 56, I just wanted to call to of those 12 that are remaining that are not going to become inactive on Monday.
Did anyone have additional questions for this fall?
So, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Related to the definition of spreadsheet.
Sure.
You mentioned 6 that responded.
Mhm.
And how do we see who responded?
Are they the boldest?
Yeah, so the comments are bolded, and then in it's either it says verified, or in the NCOA cross-state columns it'll say yes, repeat. So it's either bolded that says that they updated MVP, for example, line 33, line 36, they updated the DES application, verified their Cobb address. So those were not removed. Those 2 that updated their addresses to reflect. One, they had not moved, one had moved within Cobb County.
So line 33, Alexis Turgeon, I believe Mr. Williams' spreadsheet lists 2 addresses, the Atlanta address and then one in Clearwater.
Which one, Stephen?
Row 33,
33.
Alexis Turgeon. It's bolded.
Okay, and was she one of the ones that responded?
Yes, she updated her MVP page to confirm that she still lives at the Atlanta 30339 address.
Okay. But does your data, Mr. Williams, say that she registered in another state?
Yeah, because she's on that voter roll. And that's another change they made in SB 189. You're not allowed to just, and I've noticed this in the past, they've got one foot in one state and one in the other, and they go back and forth. Now, if they register in another state, they actually void their registration here in Georgia, and they have to reauthorize that registration. Ms. Fisher, you were pointing at me.
I do have a question on Ms. Turgeon. Did she vote in Florida? Do you have your?
I wasn't.
don't unfortunately, I don't have it.
I'm
I
not
smashed
sure.
my laptop, so I
Oh, did you?
no longer have one to bring with me.
Yeah, but I submitted, another 2,000 names to you all for Florida moves, and it was just absolutely astounding to watch the number of these people that they voted in both states. I mean, I had somebody that voted in the same election in both
Voted and
states.
registered, different things.
What?
Voted and registered are different things. So registering doesn't mean that they actually cast a ballot in that
Oh, no,
state.
this was
And
the
I don't see
voting
from your
record.
data where it has that most of these voters are that.
Well, I think we need to afford him the same respect we're asking him to
That's
afford
just
us.
misinformation.
But I understand that, but we need to afford Mr. Williams the same respect that we've asked him to afford us. I believe you were answering Ms. Fisher's question
Well, I was just gonna say
as to
that,
whether they voted. Ms.
I'm not sure. on
Turgeon.
that.
Well, that's why I asked you the question,
Uh-huh.
because that second database you sent, I did notice a pattern.
Yeah.
With Florida voters, I don't doubt they have both addresses. A lot of people have a home in Florida and a home here. And it was interesting. It did kind of appear seasonal,
Yeah.
depending on where they were when they voted. And I do think that's a key ingredient. If we have proof they did vote,
There you go.
I'm not sure all people realize they can't vote in both states.
Yeah,
But with respect to, just so that we can focus on the
Yeah,
information that we have here,
Sure.
Ms. Turgeon, that was a specific question, so you do not have information
Uh,
that relates to Ms. Turgeon voting in Florida in response to Ms. Fisher's question.
I should have.
You have her
printed that
Georgia
out before
registration.
because
Fine with that?
a lot of them did.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you for this, very helpful. All of the data that you provided here was a part of routine list maintenance, not in response necessarily to the challenge.
Correct. So except for the responses that those 3 that returned their removal request responses, those were letters that they returned, the letters that we had sent them for the notice of this meeting, is my understanding, those first 3. But all the data in terms of the list maintenance, what was mailed out, those 3 different types of list maintenance, that was regularly scheduled list maintenance from the Secretary of State's office.
So that's Cobb doing our job, performing
Right.
regular routine list.
Right. And we're only obligated, in code, the Secretary of State's only obligated to do those every other year, is my understanding, but this is the 4th year now in a row where we have done those mailings in the summertime prior to the November general election.
Great, thank you for that.
Mr. Brennan, can I get the registration number for the person you were asking, the Georgia registration number?
It's 129
129.
885 354.
What she said.
I know I'm a little louder than you, Steve, so I took delivery.
She's younger too. She can see the small print.
Contacts.
I'm sorry, can I get that again? It,
Sure.
jumped around.
129
129.
85 354.
I apologize. This 129.
85
I'm sorry, any of y'all
354.
able to do it on your Excel?
Yeah, what did you need?
I was just
what
going to
are we
pull out
trying
the
to find?
registration number for that, the Georgia registration number, which Ms. Falls providing. My keyboard's not working well, so, and it'll.
Okay, I found the row.
Okay, can you go to the right and just see if she's showing activity? Mr.
What
Running wanted to
column?
know if there's some voting activity on that individual.
That would be row
Well, just got.
852, because we're looking at your spreadsheet, sir. So those that are looking at it, it's row 852 in the spreadsheet that he provided. Mr.
Yeah,
Williams provided.
Mine's been changed around a little bit, so I don't have it in the same rows you all have.
What column am I looking for?
Let's see.
I've got it.
What's the
Let's
question?
go all the way to the right.
Mhm.
Let's see.
I have a vote ref.
No,
Um,
well, before that, actually,
okay.
if you go to
Isn't there a lot?
Column like AL, AK,
It's blank.
AL.
AL is blank, AM is blank, AN is blank.
Okay.
And if I'm interpreting those correctly, in, from, after registration, after registered.
Yeah.
Is blank.
Okay. And that
From
means-
voted in to after, again, whatever that means, is blank.
Okay.
Voted 2 times, same election, is blank.
Okay, that
So-
sounds like she didn't vote.
So then
That's
she didn't
perfect.
vote.
Yeah.
And this is the type of information, remember when I was asking about what the headings meant?
Uh-huh.
Obviously voted 2 times, same election, that's
Yeah.
intuitive. But the rest of this, we just don't understand.
Yeah, well, I really wasn't shooting towards the voting records on this,
Okay.
for mainly just registration.
But that would have been helpful. We
Okay.
would have been able, like if it said voted in other states,
Yeah, I understand.
that would be more intuitive. Yes, Mr. Grooming?
Can I just make a suggestion?
Okay.
Challenges. Please sort them by the Georgia voter registration number. So we can go directly, just trying to find what line and make sure we're looking at the same one is very difficult. And
Yeah.
that's just a suggestion, both.
No, I
make it easy for
understand.
all of us.
I'm used to working a different system in my home office. It's difficult for me on this, so.
I think where we landed, Ms. Fall, let me go back to the email. Just kind of to recap, of the 106,
Mhm.
I understand you submitted 2,472.
Mhm.
The 2,336 are noted as inactive. This board adopted a policy that we would dismiss those. So those are dismissed.
And I just
Yes, sir.
provide that, we talked about MVRA, but this is like, states adopt their own statutory schemes to implement NVRA. So
Right.
nobody's hiding behind NVRA or anything like that. This is from OCGA 21-235, and it says, an elector placed on the inactive list of electors shall remain on such list until the day after the second. So that's a shall in the Georgia statute. And I just want to point out, it's not in conflict with 229, because this board didn't adopt a policy of limiting the number. There's no, you didn't say you can only submit 200 at a time.
Right.
You can only submit 12 batches of dozen. This is a limit. This is saying, like, there's a statute that we have to comply with. The challenger can submit 3,000 challenges, but if 1,500 or 2,000 are on the inactive list, 21-235 says they shall remain on the inactive list or what can happen if they show up. So this is not, I just want to point out, because there's been some confusion. Try to limit the number.
Right.
You comply with 229, the challenger can file as many challenges as they want. This board hasn't placed a number limit on that. The board adopted a policy last month that you're going to comply with 21-235, and if a voter is placed by the state of Georgia on the inactive list, the Secretary of State sends out all those mailing for out-of-state voters and things like that. They end up on the inactive list under these statutory provisions. The Georgia legislature says they shall remain on that list for 2 summers.
I have
Okay,
a question, I have a question for Daniel on that.
Sure.
They shall remain on that list. Those are eligible voters that shall remain on the list. He's presenting, or anybody else is presenting, they're no longer eligible through an address change, which kicks you back to 217.
Well,
And,
ma'am, that doesn't say eligible in 235.
but it is the clause in the Georgia statute that refers to the MVRA, which does 16 different times.
Can I make a comment?
Hold on, just one moment.
Okay.
Mr. White, are you finished? Or do you
Yeah,
have anything further?
I was kind of waiting for you to get
Of
to that
course.
point, because there's been some different terms, like, we're not gonna consider them, or things like
Right.
that. I just want to clarify, that's not what the policy, so I'm done with that.
Okay, no worries. And I thank you for reiterating that. We were just getting to the decisions that we wanted to share with you with regard to 106, but we'll go ahead and let you have
Okay,
one
well,
more comment. and then
Thank you,
we
and
gotta move on.
I'll be quiet after this.
No
But,
worries.
I want to mention regarding 21-2235 that Mr. White just referenced. It also references Georgia Code 21-2234, which states in Section H, nothing in this code section shall prevent the removal from the list of electors of an elector for ineligibility to vote. And it's right there. I mean, they quote back and forth with each other, so let's get the whole reading. Okay, that's all I've got to say.
So where we are, and back me up, Ms. Fall, of those 106,
Uh-huh.
because again, we've made the determination with regard to the 2,336 with respect to them being inactive. That left us with 106, and again, all of this is information we've previously provided to you for those that are here. That we would only be taking up the 106, having dispensed with the other 2,336. Of those 106, we had 6 responses. 3 returned their removal requests, as Director Fall made mention of. 1 returned their cross-state confirmation notice. And so those 4 were all removed.
Okay.
Okay. Then 1 filled out an MVP address change within Cobb.
Okay.
That is a Cobb elector.
Yeah,
That person
no,
stays on.
Sounds good.
And then 1 verified Cobb information with DDS. So the very same system I believe that Ms. Fisher was making reference to, that we could look to, they confirmed that information. So that person stays on.
Okay.
That left us with 100 left.
Okay.
We're all tracking, all on the same page.
Yes.
The remaining 100, as Ms. Fall made mention of, 88 will be inactive as of Monday due to the confirmation notice clock expiring. That's that list maintenance that we were, I appreciate it, just trying to get through it. That list maintenance that we were referring to. They're coming off come Monday. I know, Ms. Fall, you and members of the registration team will confirm that they actually do fall off. Okay. That left us with 12 remaining active electors that you've challenged, that we did not receive a response to, and they're not otherwise taken care of or falling into the categories that I just described. So let's go line by line with regard to those.
I'm ready for you.
Okay, good deal.
Will you provide that to me?
Yeah,
You can, I got it.
absolutely. So there is a gentleman by the name of Alex Christian Depew. It looks like he has a Marietta, Georgia address and a Santa Rosa Beach, Florida address. His voter ID, he's line 14 for those of us here on this dais, and has a voter ID, Georgia voter ID of 1170243. You had,
Oh, are we gonna go through each one?
there are only 12.
Okay. I can tell you what's going on with them though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I said we're gonna go line by line, hence I started with this first one. Yes, so if you wanna go ahead, if you have something to add.
The only data that was provided for support for this particular voter was a vote ref doc, which is not a government agency.
So that being the case,
I didn't hear what she said.
she said that if you look at the supplemental information that Mr. Williams provided to us, in that very far right-hand column, there is a vote ref hyperlink that he provided in the most recent, excuse me, in the most recent spreadsheet. And Ms. Mossbacher made mention of the fact that vote ref is not a governmental entity. So we don't have any we don't have any information, even that complies, if you will, with the information that, or the standard that Mr. Williams made reference to. And I believe that this board, excuse me, has previously indicated that it would not rely upon a third party. Let us,
Sure.
Look,
Okay. Let me just-
just let us get through it. please.
Sure.
Okay. So that's the point with regard to that, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, how difficult would it be for us to list these people and send a request to the Secretary of State of Florida?
Whether it's difficult or not, we're dealing with the challenge as presented. So this is the hearing.
Yeah,
Perhaps we can take that up at a different time. Any additional task or information that you believe or anyone believes that we should take up. But at this point, given where we are in this hearing, in any hearing, and now I'm putting on my lawyer hat, in any hearing, we don't just say, oh, we get to do this, we get to do that, we get to do this. I would like for us, if at all possible, to go through these additional individuals.
Great.
And then we can take up any additional suggestions at a later date. Moving on to the next one. I believe it's row 20. Again, that's the row for those of us that have the information as provided by Ms. Fall and our team. The gentleman's name is David Nelson Watson. The voter ID is 129067115. His Kennesaw, Georgia address, as well as what's been provided to us as a Palm Harbor, Florida address. Ms. Mossbacher.
We have a last name mismatch. He's got a Watson and then a Watson the second, so we don't know, we can't verify that that's not false positive, and the only documentation is vote ref.
Make sure it's 14, 20.
year of birth on,
Yes, we do. It looks as
Do you
though
match?
the year of birth match is 2000.
so Watson and Watson 2 were both born in 2000.
I'm just listening to the information that Ms. Mosbacher has. What is that? May we all see that, please? What is,
Sure, it's just something on vote ref that they
Oh,
get
okay.
all their information directly from the Florida Secretary of State.
oh, I understand. I just wanted us
Secretary of
to,
State material.
I should have asked Ms.
Okay.
Fisher to hand it
I
down.
was reading it and.
Yeah. I mean, it's nothing nefarious, it's just,
It's still
You're-
just a name mismatch and a
well,
vote ref
I mean, you're
document.
just degrading
Individual
the
ones,
source, and
41.
that's Secretary of State of Florida's.
Sort of point out this, the Florida Secretary of State doesn't maintain the voter records in Florida.
Okay.
Well, I engaged because I wanted to know what was. Moving on to the next item, 41. That would be an Ali A. Salam. The voter ID is 02998002. Smyrna and the villages.
We also just have vote ref supplemental.
I can't hear what
I'm happy to repeat. We have a vote ref link that Mr. Williams provided to us. Moving on to row 54, Christina Ann Johnson and a Christina A. Johnson. I'll be clear, the birth years do not match. One is 1988, the other is 1990. There's an address in Smyrna, Georgia. There's an address in Chicago. Ms. Mosbacher.
We have a letter from the Chicago authority that was an ORR, I guess, request from Mr. Williams, but there is no date registered. That they are registered, but no further information.
And but we have a year mismatch here. Okay. Then on to row 56, on the materials that we have, Christopher Price and a Christopher Charles Riota, R-I-O-T-T-A. There is a match with respect to last name, Marietta, Georgia, and College Park, Maryland.
Right, there's the name mismatch there, and there was actually zero documentation for that voter.
Okay. 61, Grady Wissa, W-I-S-S-E-H Massey. The birth years match, addresses in Powder Springs, Georgia, and Gaithersburg, Maryland.
We have a name mismatch and a no documentation.
The name mismatch being Massey and row 66, Robert John, Roswell, Georgia, Wycliffe, Ohio.
Same situation there where we've got a last name mismatch, missing the junior, and then it's also just vote ref.
Okay, that one was vote ref. So there was documentation, it was vote ref.
That for McCabe, yes, vote ref.
'73, Taweed S. Williams.
We were provided a Pennsylvania information, but the voter is actually inactive in Pennsylvania.
Okay,
And it was on, that inactive was on the document that was submitted.
so Mr. or Mrs. Williams' registration in Pennsylvania is inactive.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, sorry.
Row 83, Prasada, row Vapana, V-O-P-P-A-N-A. There is a match on birth dates, Mableton, Georgia, and Louisville, Tennessee.
Yes, the Tennessee document that was submitted is a screenshot just from like the screenshot, but it doesn't say anything at all. I mean, I don't know that, sir. I
It's
just
on
know you're
their
able to
website.
see that there, it doesn't say active or inactive.
It shows they're registered.
Bharati Devi Bopana, same last name. birth years match. Same Mapleton, Georgia, and Louisville, Tennessee addresses.
Same scenario, there's just the Tennessee page with no information. Duval is next.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, it's because it's double-sided. No, I didn't get that right. You said what is next?
I think,
Row
98.
It's 98, okay. Oh, Duval, got it. James Weston Duval and a James Duval, Marietta, Georgia, Daisy, Tennessee, and the birth years match.
vote rep.
Vote rep. And then finally, row 105, Samuel Clayton Wheeler, there's a exact name match and a match for the birth year.
Vote rep on that one as well.
I did not keep account, Ms. Mosbacher, of those that were vote rep only.
I have 3 that does not include vote rep and a name mismatch.
Okay.
3 were vote rep only with no other reasons.
Okay.
And I can give you those names if you're trying to find them.
I just want to take them up. And then vote rep plus name mismatch.
I'm sorry, that was 4, not 3.
Okay, cool.
2 with vote rep and a name mismatch.
And then no documentation. I know, row 61 was like,
But that 2 with no modification.
okay,
So yeah.
yeah.
Um,
One with no documentation, plus a name mismatch.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
So I guess, we've gone through everything. Does anyone have any questions or comments before I entertain a motion?
Thanks.
Ready?
Does anyone? Yes.
You refresh my memory, what is vote rep?
Well, we can, if you'll, Ms. Pepper, or you can, anytime. I know it's a third-party website. We've seen in prior years, we've received information from Vote Rep. I think True the Vote and a couple of other third-party aggregation websites. I guess that's how they present themselves to be, where they aggregate information or allegedly aggregate information from government.
But is it from the Secretary of State
Mm.
in Florida?
It is not maintained.
The data
By
is
the
from the
separate-
Secretary of State. Straight from the Secretary of State. It's like, I know Mr. White said that the Secretary of State doesn't maintain the voter rolls. They send out a state voter roll that you can subscribe to, which I subscribe to, so they do compile those records.
Are they hired by the
No,
Florida?
they do these across the country, not every state, but probably 40 states maybe. And I remember a few years ago, you all disparaged voterep.com, I think it was Ms. Mosbacher, because they had a lawsuit going on in New Mexico. So, you know, they won that lawsuit. The state of New Mexico lost the lawsuit. We tried to discredit them, but really their data's fine. They get it straight from the Secretary of State in all these states. They just try to verify who's on the voter rolls. That's basically what they do. Yeah.
So is it possible to get information on voter history from the Secretary of State? Or is it,
Well, they have, in Florida, they have the county registrars, that they all supply it, I believe, to the state is how it works. But Vote Ref just compiles it, and when you go on there and you're saying it's just Vote Ref, that number one, it's supplemental documentation. The other stuff's right off the voter rolls. But if you click that, it gives them their same year of birth. It gives you great information on that, their name, year of birth. Well, I don't know if I captured voting history, but they provide that as well. But it's a very solid source of information, even though everyone may not agree to that here. It's right from the Secretary of State's database.
I reiterate my suggestion on these that have a question remaining. Are they registered to vote in Florida or Tennessee or any other? If you're registered to vote, it doesn't matter in another state whether they're active or inactive. They're still on the voter rolls. The laws clearly state if you are registered or vote in another state, you lose your ability to vote in Georgia. We keep mincing words on these residency issues. A simple email, I believe, to the Secretary of State from Ms. Fall would probably clarify, are they registered to vote or are they not? And can you give me a last date voted? It's a pretty simple, take 5 minutes to put these together, shoot it off to Florida, and I would feel a lot better about us doing our due diligence instead of mincing last name Junior versus the second when their date of birth matches. The odds of that are that they are the same individual. So if the date of birth doesn't match, then I'm all for booting the thing off the list. When the date of birth the suffix, in my opinion, I mean, I sometimes sign my name Deborah J. Fisher. Sometimes I sign it Debbie Fisher. Sometimes I sign it Deborah Fisher. So an exact name match to me, if the date of birth matches, if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck.
If there's nothing further, any comments, I believe Ms. Mossbacher wanted to make a motion.
Yeah, I move to dismiss the 106 as per not having met the burden of proof for 229. Is that how I need to say that? I move to dismiss the challenges.
I want you to deal with all of them. Since he submitted 27, I mean, you can separate them in categories if you want to.
2,472.
Okay.
When you say all of them, you're referring to 2,472. Okay.
That's what I would say. He's permitted under law to submit as many as he wants, but you need to take action on all of them, whether that's dismissal or affirming or tabling. You just gotta do
I move
it.
to dismiss the challenge of all 2,472 voters.
Is there a second?
I
Is there a second? There is an opportunity for discussion.
I second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Discussion. Is it discussion? We open it up to discussion.
we already removed a few that Tate found to be valid.
Those were
And,
4.
okay, but didn't we just put forward a motion for the entire kit and caboodle?
I'm not suggesting that we didn't. I was simply trying to move us through the process of parliamentary procedure.
I'm simply just bringing up that the number
Understood.
is incorrect.
Understood.
And I also have a question for you, Daniel.
Sure.
On
We're-
the well,
was
it
just-
matters on this, but
You won't even let me finish.
well, I believe I was talking, so, but you go ahead.
I was going
You
to
go
ask
ahead.
Mr. White a question.
So was I, but you. go
Whether it was appropriate to go ahead and amend the motion now or after the discussion. That's all I was going to ask.
Yeah, you can amend it at any point. You can
Okay.
keep discussing, or you can amend, or we can talk about what it means to dismiss versus deny it.
Understood.
And all, we can talk through all.
Okay, that's it. Go ahead, Ms. Fisher.
Daniel.
Yeah.
If you could please explain to me on what statute you believe we have the right to deny ignoring those people who are on the inactive list under 21-2-217.
So, well, 21-2-217 is just a list of requirements for eligibility, like residency. And so I'm not sure it's specifically what you're referencing. There's like a whole bunch of
Well,
subsections.
because it
So
clearly,
let me just go ahead and I think I can answer your question.
okay.
I think what you're saying is under what authority do we have to not, in terms of the inactive voters, is that what you're specifically asking about? Or,
Yeah, I would like to know the legal basis for us to deny that, just blanket denial of the people on the inactive list based on residency, because that's what's being challenged, is their residency.
well, and this is where you get into what you want to do as a board. You can have multiple reasons for denying these. They don't all have to be broken down. You can catch it in terms of reliability, the evidence presented, anything. But if the board specifically wants to break it down into inactive voters, the 21-2-235 does say, but I want to point out to you, and Mr. Wynn referenced this to you, the does it says nothing in this code section shall prevent the removal from the list of electors of an elector for an eligibility to vote. But I want to point out that's the list of electors. That's what we're talking about. It's called the official list of electors. If you look at 235, it says in addition to the official list of electors. So this is in addition to the inactive list. Is in addition to the official list of electors. The state shall also maintain an inactive list of electors. And so this is removing them from the official list of electors and putting them on the inactive list of electors. And then so in order to get back onto the official list of electors, anybody on this inactive voter list has to fill out. It says, if you read further on that section, they have to, sign something that says they still live and are eligible to vote here. So that's the point, is that this is sort of an interim step saying, like, we think you might not be eligible, so we're putting you on this inactive list. And if you want to vote in this state, you've got to demonstrate under these various different procedures in here that you're eligible to vote. So that's 234 says nothing will stop you. And because what 234 talks about is the list maintenance process, and there's nothing that's saying while this is going on, before they're on the inactive list, there's no reason you can't go ahead and remove them. But this is a separate list that once you go through that 234 process and they end up on the inactive list, that's where that is.
If a person, 217.5, 221.17, 117.5, if a person removes to another state with the intention of remaining there and an indefinite time and making such state the place of residence, such persons shall be considered to have lost the person's resident in this state, notwithstanding the person may intend to return an indefinite period. 6, if a person removes to another county or municipality within the state, intention, blah, 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 that's on an indefinite period. So no person shall be deemed to have gained or lost a student. The DC doesn't pertain here. If it's a full-time move, they shall be considered, number 4, to have lost the resident in this state. So how can we ignore this and say, oh, okay, you can remain on the rolls even though you lost your ability to remain on the rolls in 217?
But they're not, they're on the inactive list, they're not on the official list of electors, they're on
I
the
can
inactive list.
activate, if I can activate at any time. But if I have moved out of the state, I am no longer legally able to vote. However, I am in that poll pad and I show up from Florida and I give you my driver's license and, I'm able to vote because at that point, that's contact and you reactivate. When in fact, that person has made a permanent move to another state, thus should be removed.
Well, I think that the process is designed, and I'm going to this, I'm gonna use the voter number 33 of the list as an example. Let's say Ms. Turgeon somehow ended up, you know, whether intentionally or not, she ended up on their list of registered voters in Florida. She's now verified with the board, but let's say she didn't. She had ended up on the inactive list of voters. She's allowed to come in and everybody, when they fill out that form, says, yeah, no, I live here, I don't live in Florida. Now, if they do that and they lie and then they're subject to criminal penalties and everything. Anybody else who comes in and lies on any government form, they're subject to, you know, to being prosecuted, but they have to come in and fill out a form that says, I'm not eligible to vote in this other state. I do live here, and I can vote here. And so it's just like anybody, if you go in and lie about your registration on day one, it's the same thing. So that's the point of the inactive. Yes, you can walk in and do it, but she's got to fill out the form that says, I live here and I'm eligible. And so that's the example.
I understand that, but my question, going back to what my real question was, what gives us the authority to deny looking at those? Sending that list to Florida and saying, have they voted in Florida and are they registered? What gives us the right to deny that?
I'm not sure I understand the question, but
We made a policy that we won't even look at inactive voters. What gives us that right to deny that?
I think what the board says is under 21 to 235, they're gonna,
Well, what about 217? That's my question.
right. Well, you
That
read
we're
those two.
ignoring 217, which is very key to the whole thing.
Well, 234 and 235 deal with what you do with the residency issues raised in 217. And when someone doesn't respond to their confirmation card, and that's this process, and that's
for an eligible voter. It's for an eligible voter. 217 says what makes me go from eligible to ineligible. As soon as I move to Florida, register to vote, get a driver's license, ask for a homestead exemption, I am no longer eligible.
right.
And that is a key word throughout the statute, both federal and state, eligible. And we're saying, no, we won't look. So that, I've said my piece. I wanted it on the record that I said my piece. 217 is critical.
Anything further? Okay. Ms. Fisher notes correctly, so that was my mistake, in as much that when I referred to the 2,472, I should have referred to 2,468 because 4 were removed by the elections office, correct? Okay, so we had a motion that was made and properly seconded. I don't think we can amend that motion at this time, or can we?
Yeah, you can withdraw the second.
Withdraw the second.
And then make an amendment.
You made the second, correct? Stacey?
Yes.
Do you want to withdraw your second?
I withdraw my second.
Okay, and Ms. Mosbacher made the motion. Do you want to amend the motion?
I will amend, and I will just split it out that there were 2,366 inactive and 102 additional that I move to dismiss the challenge for lack of.
I think you're
Tell
not.
me the right
What
way.
I'm,
The basis
dismissal is
to
usually
deny.
procedural grounds. And so I think what you're looking for is a motion to deny.
Okay,
You're saying that I'm trying to ask, I'm asking you, are you
I'd
making
like
a
to
motion
deny
saying
the
that the challenger did not meet the burden of proof?
the challenger did not meet the burden of proof, yes.
So you want to, that's a motion to deny. Okay.
Motion to deny. I'm sorry.
The motion has been made to deny the challenge as presented for 2,468 of the challenges.
Right, yes.
And we'll obviously provide, we're in the middle of a motion, sorry.
Okay, well,
Can't-
just if you, I could ask the question when you get done.
When we get done,
Yeah,
yes,
thank
but of course, we will definitely come back to it. So the motion has been made to deny the challenge with regard to 2,468 of the challenged electors, noting that 4 of them were removed by the office. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and properly seconded to deny the motion, deny the challenge as to those 2,468 electors. Dare I ask, is there further discussion? With there being no discussion, again, we'll do a voice vote. Call the question. Ms. Fisher?
Nay.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Ms. Efrat?
Aye.
Ms. Mosbacher?
Aye.
The motion passes.
Can you get your, can we get your-
My vote, yes, my vote is yay, yes. Okay. That being said, that concludes the vote. Mr. Williams, yes.
Yeah, I'm just gonna ask you, you removed 1,200, you said simply because they're going inactive on Monday?
No, I did not say that.
I thought you just missed 1,200, said they're gonna be active, are gonna be inactive on Monday of the active
There's
voters.
12 voters.
Yeah,
who
there
sent the
are
same card.
88 that will become inactive on Monday, correct, Ms.
So
Hall?
is that why you're dismissing them? But, I mean, we're here to challenge them. Now, we're not gonna hear the challenge that they need to go, because I don't care if they're gonna be inactive Monday, they're active
They're gonna
today.
fall off the voter roll on Monday,
Well,
sir.
so, but we're here today to talk
Well,
about.
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
Part of the 102, it's
No,
coming.
they'll fall off the active voter roll.
The challenge.
I know.
Not the voter roll, too.
Right,
Yeah,
but
I'm
they're-
asking to have them removed from the voter roll.
Right, well, hang on, I don't think, the board didn't necessarily get into all their reasons. I have a feeling the board probably had reasons beyond just their active, like, they were asking lots of questions about the reliability of the information presented as a whole, so I don't, like, there were questions about, sources and mismatches and things like that, so I'm not, but those were dealt with, and if there's grounds to.
Right, we went-
There's an appeal process.
Well,
That was only on the 12.
No, we went item by item.
Yeah.
I swear to you, I went,
Not for the 88. There's not the 88 that are coming off, but
Yeah, I thought there were just some specifically because they're going inactive.
they were a
Monday.
part of the
You just said-
102.
Yeah, but I mean, they're not inactive yet, they're active voters.
Right.
We're not considering removing them for the evidence provided.
It's over.
Yeah, we're,
Okay, well, listen, one last comment. I do kind of think it's sort of rich
sir,
after, just
Sir.
now start considering the whole batch after you told me you're only going to consider the 106. Anyway, thank you for your time there. I appreciate
I'm not
it.
gonna be rude and interrupt.
So, okay, you guys have a good day.
All right, thank you, Mr. Williams.
Mhm.
Is it possible for us to take a?
Yeah, we're absolutely gonna take a break.
Do we need to?
Yes,
I
this-
believe we do.
yeah, we do, since we are in the middle of a meeting,
the recess.
we can recess. We'll entertain a motion to recess.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Bruning. Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded to recess a special call meeting for 15 minutes.
Yeah, that's good. That's
We'll resume at 11:15 a.m.